This is Discover Brightside, and we are now doing a webinar series with Colonel Donna Ford, who is a great educator, and she is here to help you with your financial wellness and to talk about retirement, something that many of us dread, some of us don't want to know about, but the ages keep creeping up, and you got to pay attention to what she has to say. So over to you, Donna.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Am I
Yes.
coming through loud and clear? You know what they call that in the military? Lima Charlie. Am I Lima Charlie? That means loud and clear. Just some stuff for you to know, in case you ever wondered why people say that. So anyway, I see Stevens smiling. Um, well, I know you guys have had a busy day. This may be the last segment you're going to watch today, so I'm just going to hit the highlights, the wave tops of what's involved with financial wellness. And some of this I hope you'll share with other people because it's really meant to cover a broad range of people, either just starting out in life or maybe they're getting ready to jump off the stage and go into retirement. I've already retired once and I didn't last 3 weeks before I went back to work, so I just love working. So the presentation is meant to be a holistic approach to what it means to be financially well. I know we've been talking about wellness and things like that for a while here on the Brightside channel. So there's some of my contact information. I'll also try and put it in the chat if there's time. But when you think about financial wellness, there's some key components that go into that. There's things like debt management, there's savings, there's having a solid retirement plan of some type, whether it's just a savings account or something more robust like a 401k. And I'm sure all of you have some type of retirement savings plan in motion, but some of what I may bring up here tonight may make you think about having another backup to your retirement savings plan. It's a matter of being free from debt, planning for the future, and preparing for those unexpected things that could knock you off your game if some kind of financial situation attacked you. For my clients, what I see oftentimes happens is medical bills. Medical bills have become a huge source of bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy in America. So if you have a backup plan, if you have some retirement, something additional to retirement, like a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, it'll take care of problems like that. But if it gets out of control, it can be a serious problem. So I mention that only because some people have medical plans that don't cover a lot, and yet they have these unexpected surgeries or some other major therapy or treatment. And then that backup savings plan can be depleted quickly. Let's see, go to the next slide, Claire, and we'll get into some of the key concepts I'm going to cover tonight. And you can stop me at any time if you want to, or we can wait till the end. Um, we're going to start with the basics of how to do retirement planning in a great way, in an easy way. It starts with budgeting and saving. So we all know what budgeting means. That means I have a budget to manage my income and the money going out to cover my expenses, right? Oh, this is just a category of how to look at financial wellness. It's consistent budgeting and savings, what we're going to talk about, strategic plans to borrow money for home ownership and business financing. A lot of people get in over their heads with debt and not have planned for that big purchase, that home, that auto, that retirement home, that land they want to buy. The trick is planning ahead, right? It's very important to plan ahead. Let me just go back to see where we're at now because I can't see the slides while I'm talking. So, um, so let's just think about some basic concepts of what financial wellness means: budgeting and saving, having a backup emergency fund, being judicious about how you're spending your money. There's a formula for having a successful way to look at money, and it's talking about income, it's putting money away, it's saving. So there's earning and savings, there's paying, and then there's fund money, right? Then there's spending. So the the income part is the earning part. So you've got to have some income coming in to cover the kind of lifestyle you want. The expenses are the things you've got to pay for, right? Savings, I almost want to reverse the order of these and put savings and then expenses, but this is how that some experts have outlined what financial wellness means. So you have income, you got to pay your bills, then you have savings, and then you got debt. Why do we have debt in there? All of us probably have a mortgage or some kind of loan out there that we're trying to pay off, whether it's a old student loan, whether it's a mortgage, maybe a large vehicle purchase, something out there we're paying on. So you've got to satisfy that debt and not forget about it. Again, I talked about the medical bills. That's another source of debt that really derails some people. Another important thing, and you can just change the slide whenever you're ready, Claire. Another important number for you to get in your head is this is part of that what I talked about a minute ago. That income, that earning, the savings, the paying, and then the spending, right? That's kind of the cycle you want to be in. This is a way to look at a basic way to approach your cycle of earning and spending and paying and that kind of thing. There's a 50-30-20 plan. The 50% is for basic needs. The wants is 30%, no more than 30%, and the 20% should go into savings. I actually think those numbers should be reversed, right? You should have a larger amount going to savings than you do into needs and wants, right? You should be able to have a large amount of your income go towards savings. Now, why is that so important? Well, unless you've got a really robust company that gives you a pretty decent 401k with a high rate of return, all of us have to have some additional spending, not spending, savings on the side to cover our retirement someday. Even I have a backup plan and I have a pension. So I still have something on the side under management with a financial planner just to make sure that I've got something in reserve for some unexpected situation. Now, at my age, I'm more worried about my long-term needs for care or something like that that's going to suck up a lot of money. And all of us at some point will need long-term care. I don't know how many of you have a long-term care plan, but something you have to get serious about in your 50s and 60s and no later than 70. There are statistics from the government that say over 60% of Americans will need help at some point in their life, whether they need it at home or in a facility. So if you don't have a plan for that or a set of money set aside that you're not touching, that can be a big burden on you, your family, and your loved ones to figure out. So don't wait to the last minute. Took care of three different people in my lifetime. It's difficult, it's expensive, and it can be mentally exhausting to take care of someone. So don't put that burden on your family without a plan to make sure that you have the right care and that they have the funds to take care of you. So here's some strategies for dealing with that earning and spending and saving cycle. By the way, there's a bullet here that says pay yourself first with savings account, CDs, 401ks. These are just avenues for savings money. You can save money in a bank account. You can do it in a 401k. If you're in the government or education, you might have a 403b. You can use a Roth. There's many ways to get to retirement. These are just some of them. But I put these here because you should always pay yourself first and then worry about all the other things you got to pay for, like the rent or the mortgage or the utility bills. And then you got to have a little money left over to do things for yourself, right? Whether maybe you want to travel or do something like that. Some people use an envelope budget. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but there's envelopes that you mark for certain things you got to pay. And you put the money in there to take care of that. And then when you've exhausted all the money in the envelopes, you don't spend any more money. You should also use spreadsheets. There are a lot of different platforms for doing a budget that I won't bore you with right now, but there's a lot of good ones. If you need help with that, I'll find you one. So, and we can move on now. Does anybody have any question about this basic cycle of earnings, savings, spending, that kind of thing? Anybody heard of this before?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been trying to do these saving things for forever, read so many
Right.
books. I have no idea how my parent does it with such minimal salary, and they manage to save way more than what I could ever save. I was just wondering, let's say basic needs and want. My biggest problem is I think like life is short, and I'm all for saving. But I also don't want to have a whole bunch where I can't access. I'm gonna die at some point. So how do you balance between the wants and the saving where it makes logical sense? I don't want, I did the thing where somebody said track every much stress. I wasn't living anymore.
Oh, goodness. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, to break it down in its most fundamental basic, right? So a need is something you have to pay, right? It's a bill, it's a necessity that just has to be taken care of. The want is I'd really like to have that streaming service or that extra amount of, some kind of entertainment that I want to get done, but I can't do it right now because I don't have the extra income to do it. For example, travel is one it's kind of a want. It's not really a need. So if you're planning a big trip and you want to go someplace exotic, you need to say, I'm going to defer the trip till I know I have the income to afford it. I don't want to put all of it on a credit card or worse, have to take out a loan to afford a family vacation. So a lot of it's just deferred, happiness. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of things I like to do, but again, I took that pot of money that I was saving for me to do fun things like travel, and I've now just deferred it into an account that I can't touch because that has to be my long-term care plan. I have to have funds to take care of Donna when Donna can't take care of Donna. So that's something that I decided I'm going to defer that want because I need this plan. So that's an example of where you have to make that judgment call. Do I really need that extra streaming service or get DoorDash 3 times a week or have a very expensive car or truck when I can really get by with something more economical? And with the price of gas, I think all of us wish we had a more economical car right now. I know I do. So does that help to answer your question?
Yes, partly, but it's
Okay.
good. I continue listening to it. There will probably be more info that I can actually apply.
Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit more of that later in the presentation, but it's a good question because a lot of people struggle with that, is how do I save more while I can still do my life the way I want to? And you can move on anytime you want to, Claire. Thanks for the question. It's a good one. We all struggle with that problem. So here are some basic categories of savings, whether or not it's savings just for the near term or for the long term. And you need both. You need some near-term savings for, like I said, emergencies. I tell people to have at least 3 to 6 months on hand, but because of COVID, a lot of people, I told them, you need a little bit more than that. You might want to have a year's worth of income in case, God forbid, we have some other catastrophic event take place. But so you need a liquid account where you can pull money out quickly. It could be a savings account. It could be some other account that's got liquidity to it. So that's for short-term emergencies. You need sustained savings. That means something where you're not going to touch it right away. You're going to park it and let it roll. For long-term goals, you want to buy a home or maybe a second home and maybe a vacation home. You want to remodel your home. You got an older home. I have a house that's not that old, but there's already some remodeling that has to get done. So I'm setting aside some money for that contingency too. You may need a new vehicle or vehicles. You may need some education to continue your career. Everybody in this room that I can tell isn't going to be going to college anytime soon, but you may be wanting to get some continuing education for whatever career you're in. I know in my career in insurance, we have to take continuing education courses all year long. So I'm always logging on to find the best vendor for those kind of education needs. Retirement accounts. Okay. I'm assuming everybody here has a retirement account, correct? Yes, everyone's nodding their head. Good, good. Okay. The key thing about retirement accounts is you have to take out the money at the get-go, right? And tell this to your children or grandchildren if you have both. They should start putting away money for retirement with the very first job they get. And I know they're going to think you're crazy for telling them that, but if they start some kind of small retirement account, even if it's just a savings account at the bank or a CD that they can't touch or a money market account, something where it's going to be safe and protected, right? They'll thank themselves later that you made them do that because it's one of those things where it's deferred happiness down the road. I took this money, I didn't touch it because I knew someday I would need that money. The reality is very few jobs other than government pay a pension. I was lucky enough to be in the military, so I got a pension, but on almost any job out there right now, you've got to create your own account or rely on the company to provide you with a 401k. Now, every company that's large probably has some kind of retirement account, but depending on how it's structured, you have very little opportunity to change that retirement plan, right? It's kind of defined for you and you don't have much opportunity to change it or influence it. So you should have that 401k, that 403b, but create your own separate retirement account on the side to make sure that you've got the flexibility to change it. You should probably work with a financial professional to do that. But just make sure you have that other backup retirement plan sitting in the wings to back up the one that the company creates. Because let's face it, some people lost a lot of money in company provided 401k plans in the last few years. So don't let that happen to you. Have that backup plan sitting in the wings. Next slide, Claire. Is all this making sense? Is it tracking with what you guys know or okay? Setting up automatic payments. So again, this is one of those things where you're paying yourself first. So before you get your paycheck, whether you're paying yourself or you're getting it from a company, take a portion of it, say that's always going to go into savings. That first, however amount of money it is, that first $500 a month or $200 a month is going to go into my savings account. Just, you won't miss it because it's going to go into savings. And please cancel all these streaming subscriptions that you have. I know people are really addicted to them, but they get very expensive. Their rates go up. They don't warn you that they're going up, and then suddenly that streaming subscription you had has gotten very expensive. So try and really pare back some of that, those subscriptions. Reduce your dining out. A lot of people do a lot of DoorDash orders or just eat out constantly. It's a lot cheaper to do your own meal preparation and cooking. And I actually started doing that this past year because I wanted to eat healthier because let's face it, most dining establishments don't have the healthiest food. So, and I think my health has improved dramatically just by cooking my own meals. Reduce and restrict any online shopping. We have an addiction to things like Amazon and Temu and all these places where you can buy inexpensive items. You have to really kind of control your spending and you should have a budget for that every month and say, I'm not going to exceed $1,000 on Amazon. You need to map out and plan and save for any major purchase. We covered this a little bit a few minutes ago. So anytime you're going to buy a piece of land, a home, a vehicle, something big, a boat, whatever that important thing is, an extensive travel where you want to take a month off and see the world. Don't just think, I'll just take the trip and I'll worry about how to finance it later. You have to finance it first, then take the trip. So if you think of everything as a strategic goal and you map that out way in advance, then by the time the trip is on and you're on that cruise or on that fabulous vacation, you're not worried anymore because you mapped out the money to take care of that thing that you really wanted. Next slide. A lot of this is basic stuff, but it's kind of a good reminder. And I hope that you'll share some of these ideas with people that are in your family that maybe don't know these things. Or so you start early. I told you that before. With the very first job, you start putting money away, right? You set your savings goal. If you have an older 401k, a lot of people have worked at different companies over the years, and they have this old 401k sitting back at their old company, and they're just kind of, oh, I forgot about that thing. What am I going to do with it? You can roll it over into another plan. So don't let an old 401k just sit there because it's no one's managing it for you. It's just sitting there doing nothing. So take it and put it into something that's got a better plan for you and is gaining some interest and that you have control over because that retirement plan you left at the old employer, no one's watching out for it for you. So you need to take care of that yourself. IRAs and deferred annuities. A deferred annuity just means you put it and you parked it for a while. It could be up to 10 years before you touch that annuity. Now, annuities got a bad rap in the past, but they're organized and actually managed a lot better than they used to be in the past. So you can take an annuity, park a sum of money, say you sell a home and you don't need the money right away. You can park a portion of that sale of that home into a deferred annuity and just not touch it for 10 years. And then that becomes your backup retirement plan, right? Because you park the money somewhere safe and you need it later in life when you want to take a retirement. Roths are very popular right now. Roths are good because you never pay another dime of tax on it because it's already been paid with the tax has already been paid on the money that you're putting into a Roth. They do have caps. You can't put a ton of money into a Roth. They do have some caps on them. You can't, they're limited in terms of how much you can put into them. But they're really great. I really encourage them for young people. If you know a young person in your life, please tell them to take out a Roth IRA as soon as possible. They're easy to get, easy to fund, very easy to manage, and not as sophisticated as a 401k, but definitely a good backup for a young person to have in their hip pocket. Permanent life insurance. A lot of people don't think of life insurance as a savings plan, but it is. If you take out a permanent life insurance policy, the right kind, you can park money in that policy within the guidelines of the IRS, and that money can accrue at a pretty high interest rate. Some of them have an incredibly high interest rate. The ones that I work with at Mutual Omaha get between 6 and 7% interest rate, and that's a life insurance policy. So that ain't bad. Okay. Then anytime you can find a tax-free savings or distribution plan for your funds, definitely utilize those more than the ones we have to pay taxes on. Obviously, you have investments. HSAs, a lot of people don't realize that HSAs are a great place to park money. If you have one and you have any extra income, park some money in there because they don't have a bad interest rate and you can keep them in there for quite a long time. So if you've got an HSA, look at that as a potential for another backup retirement plan. SEPs. SEPs is like an IRA for a small business owner. If you don't have a retirement plan, consider talking to your financial professional, or I can help you with that, setting up a SEP to take care of the fact that you need to create your own private 401k. And that's kind of what an IRA is for a small business owner. A SEP fills that bill. Next slide. Um, uh, we're just going to break down some of the things that are sources of debt for you and might affect your retirement. Your mortgage, that makes up a significant more part of people's monthly debt, right, is their mortgage. HELOCs is something a lot of people are looking into right now with variable interest rates. So that can create some debt depending on the kind you get. Home equity loans, they have fixed rates. You have to be careful with taking out these equity lines of credit and be savvy about which ones to take out because they can create some debt for you that gets unmanageable after a while. Education needs, we already talked about student loans. We know that a significant portion of debt in America is just from student loans. Vehicle loans, credit cards. We all know that America's got an addiction to credit cards, medical bills. I want to focus on that because a lot of people who aren't on, say, Medicare or some government provided healthcare plan, they're trying to manage medical bills with a probably a high deductible. So a lot of it, their medical bills are paid out of pocket. So if you're one of those people, you really need to manage that debt. And if possible, talk to the hospital center or provider that's providing your medical service and see if they'll put you on some kind of a payment plan where you don't have to pay it all at once. So that is doable in most states where they have providers. Day-to-day living expenses. So we already talked about this earlier. Even though I live in Texas, even our gasoline has gotten high. So these are the kinds of things that can eat away at your budget because right now groceries are expensive, fuel is expensive, utilities have gone up. So all the things that we have to do day in and day out without skipping a beat have now become expensive. So you have to plan for that and have extra money set aside to deal with the fact that everything that I do day to day is now more expensive for me. So next slide. A lot of people have this notion, and I hope that Reg talked about this because he's a credit expert. Your credit score is something you ought to monitor. And a lot of people are afraid to look at it or even at any time review it. Don't think that looking at your credit score is going to affect your credit. It's not. It used to be, or maybe there was an urban legend about it, but looking at your credit score does not create a problem for you. So don't fall into that trap of thinking, I can't ever look at my credit score. I can do it safely, and you should check it at least, I would say, a couple of times a year. Interest rates for your mortgage, auto, and personal loans. It is possible to get a better mortgage rate, right? You can refinance and get a better mortgage rate. Auto insurance. I just redid my auto insurance last month. I saved a ton of money by switching companies, and I never would have known that if I had not shopped around. Personal loans. If you need personal loans, just shop around and get the best rate. Don't accept the fact that, oh, I know my life insurance person will get me a good rate on these all these other things like auto and home. But and I know you have a personal relationship with that person, but you should still shop around and get the best rate for you and your family. If you're unable to save money and you realize that that's a problem for you, you need to put yourself on a plan to get better at that. And you can do that with the right steps on how to improve your spending versus earning, right? Lack of emergency funds. We've kind of talked about that quite a bit. Your employment can be affected by debt. Did you know that a lot of employers will check your your income in the past and how you spent money and look at your credit score? There's a lot of access employers have to looking at you financially. And when they see that you've been in trouble with bankruptcy in the past or something like that, that fact that you had to file a personal bankruptcy may affect them employing you. So don't let your debt get out of control to the point where you've got a bad credit score, or worse, you've gotten into bankruptcy and now the employer is kind of hesitant to take you on. Debt can delay your retirement. So one of the things we want to talk about tonight is retirement. If you're constantly in debt and you can't put money into that savings vehicle, whether it's that 401k or that savings account or that annuity, that will affect your ability to retire because you don't have enough money to retire. So think about every dime I'm spending today, there needs to be another dollar thrown into my retirement plan. It reduces your cash flow, right? Anytime you're constantly in debt, you're paying off debt versus increasing your cash flow into your family. It can create possible bankruptcy, and it affects relationships. A lot of marriages are broken up not over the kids or changed goals, but because they're constantly fighting over money. So don't let that strain your relationship by the fact that you're kind of always challenged with your income and paying off your bills. So next slide. I'm just giving you some key concepts. One of the ways you manage your debt is just doing some of the basics. You're trying to eliminate all the high interest debt you get. Instead of having the credit card that's got the 26% interest rate, you're trying to negotiate with another company to get a lower one. You pay your stuff on time, right? That's the big news here. Earn, save, pay, spend. That's the cycle. You earn some money, you save some money, You pay your bills and then you have your spending money. So if you get in that mindset, earn, save, pay, spend, it'll really color your whole life and make things a lot easier. You need to pay more than just the minimum payment. I know a lot of credit card companies say, well, you only have to pay $100 this month. If you go a little bit more and pay off that debt sooner, it'll really get you some down the road a little bit quicker. Review your debt to income ratio. You need to know how much money you've got coming in and how much you're paying towards debt. When you understand your income to debt ratio, then you know how far behind you are. For most companies, they advise you to have a 36 to 43% debt to income ratio. And there are online, Wells Fargo has a very good debt to income ratio calculator if you're not sure what your debt to income ratio is. And we can talk about it another time, or I can, if you want to set up some time with, we can go through that. Again, reducing your online spending. We're all very addicted to Amazon, so just set yourself a limit. Say, as soon as I reach $1,000, no more Amazon. Identify wants versus needs. We kind of talked about that earlier, right? It's so easy to think that I've got to have that thing I really want. Is that really a want or a need? It's essential to separate what we really essentially have to have versus something that's really a nice to have. And I struggle with it myself. So this is not something that I'm telling you to do that I've not struggled with it myself. So it's very important to separate the need versus the want and then defer the want by planning for it. Put aside the money to take care of the want down the road. Avoid any new debt. You need to put a freeze on your credit cards. At some point during the month, when you see that your American Express has gotten too high, you need to say, okay, I'm going to convert to just using my debit card or just plain old cash. That way I'll control my spending more because I'll see what's going on. When you put something on a credit card, you kind of forget what you charged on it until you get the end of month statement. Now you realize I really, charge way too much on that credit card. I need to really control my spending. Next slide. We're almost on the final slot here. Okay, improving your credit report. You can improve your credit score. It is possible. You do need to check it. Don't be afraid to do that. Keep your credit card usage as low as possible if you can. If you have to have a couple different credit cards and manage the debt, that's fine. Just make sure you pay them on time. That's the key. Stay top of your overdue bills. If you've had a bill that got a little bit behind, try and talk to the company you got behind on, particularly if it's a medical bill. And just accept the fact that you may have some late fees, but ask them if they can work with you on a payment plan. Most companies will work with you on a payment plan. Even if you're a little more than just a little overdue, they will work with you on setting up. They don't want you to not pay your bills. They want to be able to make it you to be as successful as you can. Next slide. So, uh, I'm going to talk briefly about identity theft because your retirement can be affected by identity theft. Imagine that someone has hacked into your computer account, right? And they've managed to see what you've got in your 401k or your 403b or some other retirement plan you have, and suddenly all your money's gone. It's a real thing. It can happen. It doesn't just happen to people that you read about in the news. Every day people get their identity stolen every day. So be careful when you're looking at your medical information. Medical information has everything about you, right? It's got your address, it's got your all your accounts are in there, all your social security's in there. So a medical data can be stolen just like any other information can get stolen. So check with your medical provider and ask them, what is your policy about protecting my identity, right? You need to know that. Financial, when you're using your financial accounts and credit cards, that's an easy way for thieves to steal your identity. So protect those. Watch your statements. If you see something that you didn't do, call your financial institution and say, I did not authorize that credit card purchase for $1,000, at that local auto repair shop, and let them know that. Child identity is a big problem. Thieves can steal a child's identity because they have a social security number, right? And they can start using that child's name to open up their own accounts and take out loans and do all kinds of fraudulent activities. So monitor your kids' data as much as you monitor your own because their identity is almost easier to steal than yours because they're just starting out. All forms of identity theft are criminal and should be reported. Always report any theft of your identity, even if it's minor, right? And then stay vigilant, stay on top of it. Identity theft is one of the biggest growing crimes in America. A lot of people don't realize that, but your identity can get stolen at any time, and you might not even notice it for a couple of months. And now the thieves have taken out another mortgage on your house. They've taken out a loan in your name. They've done a lot of damage to you financially, and you're not even aware of it. So stay on top of all of your expenditures, your credit accounts, your loans, and everything else. Make sure that somebody's not using your accounts to take on a new loan. Next slide. By the way, Reg, I believe, does identity theft stuff, doesn't he, Claire? If you're worried about that, I believe he's in that business. So if not, we'll find your identity theft expert. So just a couple of ways to avoid any credit card or identity theft. Check your statements, right, all the time. Utilize security features. All of your bank accounts, your 401ks, all those things have extreme security features. So take advantage of those, right? Change your password frequently. Don't just do it once every couple of years. Change it, I would say, every few months, right? Use a passcode. A passcode is different than a password. A passcode may be only a few digits, like just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Just an example. Whereas a password's a combination of digits, and it's also of other characters. It could be, alpha. It's an alphanumeric kind of thing. A passcode is just a series of numbers, typically. So change it up between your accounts and don't make it always the same password. Never reuse a password. Use something different. Again, avoid online shopping that doesn't seem legit. If you get something from Amazon that says, "Hey, you're getting $1,000 of this," it's been purchased and it'll be delivered soon. Well, it may be going to a thief's house, not yours, but they used your Amazon account to buy it. So review your credit score. We already talked about watch your bank accounts. Check on any new or unauthorized loans. If you get a statement from a company saying, "Hey, we just approved your loan," you go, "I didn't take out a loan." I even get spam phone calls telling me, "We just approved your loan. Press here and we'll talk to you about your loan." I didn't take out any loans. And again, if you're a victim, please report it right away to law enforcement, tell your bank or other institution what happened, and then obtain some legal support to fight that identity theft. So I think that's it, Claire. I think we've gotten to the end. I know I covered a lot and was kind of just a went over the world kind of wave tops. Does anybody have any questions or want to set up, a separate time for us to talk? No questions. Okay, good. I guess I covered everything pretty thoroughly. Um, so I want to
I
ask
do
you
have
this
a question.
question. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah.
I think you said it, but for identity theft, like that's such a huge thing. Like for example, for my kids, I didn't think of that. That actually is a good point. How do you
Yes.
monitor that? Like,
You monitor anything going on with your child in terms of when they're going to the doctor or if you've set up a bank account. Does anybody do that anymore to set up bank accounts for children? A lot of people do that. You monitor their accounts and their medical files to make sure that someone hasn't stolen their identity. And you'll notice if something comes in the mail for your child and it's not something your child should be receiving, like it's from a banking institution that you don't do any banking with or some loan company, that'll clue you
Mhm.
in that something's wrong. Or you get a phone call or an email message saying, David was approved for a loan for $100,000. And I went, wait a minute, my son can't take out a loan for. That's when you know that someone scammed your
Yeah,
family and they stole your child's identity and they took out a loan in his name.
got it.
It's
And
also a
what if
problem
it's
with people that pass away. They try and steal their identity because their social security number is kind of still out there. And it could potentially be a problem if someone has just passed away. Someone can try and steal their identity. So,
gotcha.
yeah.
And then you said the medical, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, someone can use the medical facility where you take your child because they don't have as much rigor as some banking institutions. They could steal his identity from that. So I encourage you to go to the medical center and ask, how is my child and my identity being protected in your institution? Because once they get into the system, they know your name, your social security number, your date of birth, where you live, your phone number, and then they take that identity and now they create a new one to get a loan for themselves. So it's more like a vigilance thing to ask the facility, how are you protecting my family from identity theft? Have you ever gotten a letter in the mail that from a bank or someone saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, your information was part of a data breach, and
Hmm.
you need to watch." Yeah, so that happens almost daily. So it's something you just have to engage in a conversation with where your child has an account or goes for his medical care to make sure that they're protecting his data. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
yeah. Any questions on anything? Anything I didn't cover that you were expecting? Maybe I didn't cover something you want more information. Lori, your title says retiring. What sort of retirement advice do you provide or work did you do with people?
Yeah, I don't provide the kind that you do. I
Okay.
do the non-financial side of
Oh,
retirement planning. So while everyone and wonderful advice that you had for everyone about setting up your plans for retirement early on and really being vigilant about that is so important. And what I help people do is really take a look at what do they want out of retirement. They've worked
Ah,
so hard. How are they going to create their own non-financial plan, what I call a retirement journey roadmap? Yeah.
I'm glad you do that because I still, at this time in my life, I still wonder, is there something else I should be doing that I just haven't figured out yet, right? Yeah,
And I love how you said, 3 weeks into retirement, that was it, right?
that
And
was it.
that's
I
so
went back to
different
work
today.
because I hadn't planned for it. I
Exactly.
did not plan for my retirement. It's like suddenly I realized, oh, I've been in 30 years that they're forcing me out. And I wasn't ready emotionally,
Yeah.
to make that step. And I think my husband thought, hey, Donna's finally home. We're going to do all these things. I went, I still need to
Hmm.
work. I can't separate my life from work. It's just in my DNA. I have to be working every day at something, right? So,
Yeah, we're so
yeah.
goal oriented that it's hard to separate from that.
It
Absolutely.
is. I'm someone who can't relax. I can't take a vacation for 3 weeks and go to Fiji. It's like, I can go away for a few days, maybe a week, but 3 to 4 week vacation is not for Donna for. But I'm glad people do that. I'm actually happy for them that they do, but it's just not. I come from a family where everybody worked all the time, and I started working when I was 15. So I just have done it my whole life. So, um,
For sure.
any other questions, comments, something you thought you'd hear that you didn't hear or need more information on?
Well, let me say something.
Okay.
Um, I thank you, Donna. That was tremendous. I really appreciate your added value that way. I do want to bring to the knowledge and perspective that people, I don't know where you are in your work and performance model measures, but at no time in the history of our country has there been more, it's even even more available for you to become wealthy than any other time in our history. You now be where it might have taken you a 20-year period of time to retire and become wealthy. Today, you can wake up, poor one day and wealthy the next. It just depends on what kind of things you're involved in, but it does have to do with a structure of income. I mean, in fact, I've heard it said a few times, accumulating wealth based on money that's spent and money that's saved is more difficult to do than accumulate using the money that you're making to help you accumulate more money. If I'm explaining that, if we're right now we have 40 to 60 hours a week as an income model directive. Now that's good, 40 to 60 hours a week, but we've moved in some ways to a model that while we're asleep, we can't be working. If you have some components in place that are directing income your way, that can direct a volume of income for you while you're asleep, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means that, say for instance, let's look at the book authors. A book author, now according to Amazon, you've got to sell 5,000 books for you to start to earn income on on book sales. You have to sell 5,000 books. Now it takes about, on the average, it's about $15,000 investment to get a volume of 5,000 books sold. That means I've got to put $15,000 into a model that gets me money consistently returned. However, once you reach 5,000 books sold, money is coming. Money is coming. Money is coming. And that means that if you hit a pocket of sales for your books, then books are being sold while you sleep. Books are being sold while, or that you create some kind of, if you're big on software, and you write a software that you're selling now. You're selling, you're getting out to the right people, and they're buying your software. And if you reach the right pocket of software being sold, right away overnight, you can really hit it big. So I'm saying that to say that we need to reposition our thinking on making money. And 40 to 60 hours a week is still 40 to 60 hours a week. But if you can turn 40 to 60 hours a week into 120 hours a week, but still working your 40 to 60 hours, then you've just transferred your process of accumulating wealth to one of income development, an income development model. So many of you have skill sets. If you have skill sets that can help you transform what you're doing, say for instance, so let's look at it. If you're an accountant, now you're an accountant and you manage the books for a small company, or let's just say, let's look at it this way. You manage the books for three different organizations. Three different organizations. Now, that doesn't mean that you only get busy during income tax time. That means that you could actually be busy all year through, because that company is going to be looking to how to reposition their own balance sheets and how they can position their income and their models of income toward a projection of greater growth. Greater growth. So now income is one thing, but or accumulation money is one thing, but new income is another. Does that make any sense? I mean, does that make any sense? Is that okay? At the end of the day, we're trying to position you or help position you into a place of greater valued income. Greater valued income. Sure, it's right. If I'm making $100,000 a year and I'm spending $105,000 a year, yeah, I mean, you're going $5,000 in the hole. But if you're, again, if I'm making $100,000 a year, but I'm spending $85,000 a year, then that means I'm 15,000 to the big. So at the end of the day, how do I position that my spend of $85,000 toward a position that I could double that to 200,000? I'm spending 85,000, but that I'm paying all my bills on time, but I'm taking 15 of that 85,000 and putting it into a platform that could generate double the 85. So that all of a sudden transforms everything. And if we will reevaluate our spending models, if we will reevaluate what our big and long-term objective perspectives are, then you might find yourself at the beginning of the line rather than the end of the line. And America's a great economy. It's an excellent economy. But, make sure that we utilize the tools in this American economy to get you further along. Now, I love driving fast cars. I love driving fast cars. Me and the security officers, we have a bet. We have a bet. He's trying to catch me, and I'm trying not to be caught. So, but at the end of the day, how much money am I willing to bet on my state of things? And now be clear about this. I'm not gonna go but so far. I'm not gonna go but so far, in the middle of the night on a lonesome road, nah, I don't think so. Or in a publicly carried area where I know that it's heavily trafficked by police officers, nah, so you have to pick your points. And so that's what I'm saying to you today. Pick your points of preference about how you can invest. Now, many people look at real estate, good model of income. Many people look at stocks and bonds, good model of income. Many people are private models that way. So look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at what works for you, how you can win and benefit. It may be it may be something that only you are familiar with. If you have let's just say in Donna's case, you're the only insurance agent within a 25, 30-mile radius. The only insurance agent. Now you got a corner in that space. If you were to look at in your zip code, how many people and the disparities of insurance providers, that's a good marker to heavily database, heavily traffic, heavily send out information to. So these are important areas. I hope I've tweaked a couple of things. I'll work on a provision for this area. But our thinking and our focus and our posture for you is to help you grow your wealth. We want to be there for you and with you to help you grow your wealth. Hope that was helpful. Was it helpful? Did it have value for you? Okay.
No, absolutely, Elton. You bring up a great point. We live in a country literally that is the source of making millionaires, right? And the ability to understand those opportunities and when to, capitalize on those shifts in the economy or opportunities for investment are critical. A lot of people don't have the kind of forethought and planning and strategic planning like you have, but it's an important skill set to know, when do I want to take my money and invest it, and when do I want to put it somewhere where it's going to kind of lay protected for a while. There's a time and a place for both. There's a time to invest money in something where you're not 100% sure of the return, but you think it's a great opportunity. And if you lose a little money, you go, okay, I tried that, didn't work. And there's a time to kind of protect your assets in a more safe, investment model. But I think what you bring up is very important. We have to be strategic in everything we do with finances, be very strategic. So,
Okay, so let's stop recording. I thought that was a wonderful